Good afternoon and welcome to our regular council meeting for June 17th, 2024. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territories and the oral practices of the Blackfoot Nation, which include the Siksika, the Kainai, and the Piikani. We also acknowledge the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda First Nations, the Métis Nation District 4, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. We're making this acknowledgement to demonstrate our continuing efforts to work together as we strive for reconciliation through increased and collective learning. Okay, we got staff introduction here. Lisa, if you want to introduce the new member to the team.
Thank you. Happy to introduce Robin Clausen. Robin is joining us in the Community Development Department as our full-time inclusion coordinator. So the City of Brooks has often had a part-time inclusion coordinator. We're very excited now to have her working in the role full-time. She comes to us from the local social services agency in town, so she has a long history of working in social services, and she actually was raised in the region anyway, so she's a native that's come home to us. So we're excited to have her.
Okay, yeah, welcome, and we're excited to have you as part of our team. So, yeah, thank you. Okay, moved by Councillor Wardrop that the agenda be adopted. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Goodenough that the minutes from the regular council meeting held June 3rd, 2024 be approved. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Idris that the May 2024 RCMP report be accepted as information. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thank you for having me today. My report covers the month of May 2024. We responded to 426 calls for service in the city. We lodged a total of 31 prisoners and completed 152 criminal record checks. We also issued 61 violation tickets within the city. Some files, miscellaneous investigations from May. On the 21st, we responded to a complaint of an intoxicated male damaging inside a residence. What we were told was that all the parties involved were known to each other. We attended and arrested a male who was in breach of no contact conditions, which stemmed from an earlier incident at the same home 7 weeks prior. We arrested the male and charged him with 2 counts of failing to comply, as well as provided him with an undertaking and held a release hearing on him. Later that evening, after the male was released from his bail hearing, he was placed on no contact conditions and conditions not to attend back to that residence by the Justice of the Peace. He decided not to obey those conditions and attended the residence 30 minutes later and re-victimized the people living inside. So they called us and we attended. He had fled the location. We used our police dog and were unable to locate him, but obtained a warrant for his arrest and located him the next day. And this time he was thankfully remanded into custody. We've also been dealing with some stolen vehicles within the area and surrounding area. So just for an example, on the 4th, we recovered a stolen vehicle in Scandia, which had been stolen from Tabor. On the 5th, another vehicle was stolen from Bassano. Calgary police actually recovered that vehicle during one of their search warrants. On May 6th, we responded to an industrial area in Brooks for a break and enter where a truck was stolen. That truck was later recovered in Cypress County. And then on May 20th, we responded to a complaint of a stolen vehicle near Tilly. That vehicle was located in Brooks the next day, and it was located later on after it was used to steal another vehicle from Brooks. And on the 21st, we recovered that new stolen vehicle in Bassano. These go on, but it's just to show that these vehicles are being stolen from Brooks, they're being stolen from Calgary. You know, the neighboring communities, they're being driven to various places, dumped. New people are victimized in other communities, and it's not just tied to our area in town. So luckily all the vehicles that were stolen from our area have been recovered up to this point. So also included some trends that we're monitoring here in the detachment, and I think the big one right now would be, there's been an increase in break and enters within our community. Some of them business, some of them residential. Of note, a lot of the residential ones have been drug-related, and unfortunately, when we're trying to investigate those, we don't often get a lot of cooperation from the victims. That's my report, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'll start off, it's interesting because I think in the last report in April, there were no stolen vehicles. So I think we got more this time around. Are people leaving the keys in the vehicle? Is that what's happening, or are they getting around it another way?
On some occasions, yes. Some of the vehicles, older models, can be stolen simply with a screwdriver. So we do still see that. But
Okay.
yeah, a lot of the times it's because the keys are left inside the vehicle.
Yeah. The other thing about the break and enters is, does this become a seasonal? You said it was drug related. Does this become a seasonal thing, that there's more in the summertime?
I don't think so. I think it just depends on, who's currently active in our community.
Okay.
People that get released from jail or visit from other communities, I would say.
Yeah, speaking of summer, do things change for you guys over the summer? One would be, do you anticipate being busier? And how does staffing with holidays and things like that affect you guys?
For sure, yeah. No, we're always busier in the summer. People are outside enjoying the weather, doing activities, so it keeps us quite busy. Our call volume will typically go up significantly when the warmer weather comes. Right now with staffing, we're facing a few issues with resources, nothing that we can't handle at this point, and we're actually slated to get 3 new recruits in the coming months, so that will help. I also have some sad news for our detachment, but good news for the member. Corporal Joe Schmidt was promoted last week to the commander of the Bassano detachment.
Oh, okay, well, he's close
so
by, so
he'll
yeah,
be
if
close
you need
by,
him, you
so-
can, yeah, no, he's been a nice asset, very communicative to us
For sure.
over the time there, yeah, and good resource, like even with the cadet program that the school offered and things like that, too. He's
Absolutely,
very good,
so.
yeah, so, yeah, okay, any other questions? No, I don't know. Okay, Councillor Wardrow.
Thank you. I was hoping that you could maybe speak to this new table that you've added here with these trends. There's a lot of red on there with the you kind of have like a rolling 12-month average, I guess, and then the current 5-month and then overall flag. Because this is a new addition to the report, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you just speak to the table a little bit for
For
us?
sure. So the biggest column I would look at in there would be overall, if it identifies as an issue. And yes, while there are several categories that are potential issues, the biggest increase that we're monitoring right now that I think would have the largest impact on the community would obviously be the break and enters. But it doesn't mean we're not looking at the other categories, the property crime. We're always monitoring that and working on ways that we can lower that number. So,
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick follow-up. So, under the criminal harassment category, it looks like the numbers are going down, which is good, but it's still an issue. So I'm wondering at what's the threshold for how much of that is an issue, I guess. Does that question make sense?
it does. It's not one that I can answer right now. I'd have to go back and look at like the last 5 years. So I'd be happy to send you an email on that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure.
Because 4.2, is that cases? Or is that another measurement that?
That would be like files for that month. So, and then the rolling average I would think would be a year after year average.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Idris?
Following up on the same table, actually, I know RCMP is merely an enforcement agency, but when you identify something as an issue, what else could you do or are you doing to address these things?
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of proactive work. And, you know, we identify our priorities at the beginning of our fiscal year, which is April. That's when we talk to the community and find out what their concerns are. And, you know, that's when we set our roadmap for the whole year on, you know, ways that we're going to tackle that issue. And it's not just through proactive enforcement. There's education and other things that we do. But obviously, when issues arise, such as break and enters, we have to adjust those throughout the year. So it's never a simple solution. It often takes, you know, all the members in the detachment to come up with ways on, you know, how we can deal with these crime trends. So, you know, break and enters, for example, you know, last year we began running our CEPTED program. That's the crime prevention through environmental design. And, you know, we've offered that free of charge to any business in Brooks. And, you know, I've gone on some of these assessments with members while they're doing them, and I think they're very valuable. You know, that's just one way that we're trying to reduce, you know, break and enters to, you know, rural residents, businesses within the community, things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, to the motion, all those in favor? Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Jessica that the following items of correspondence be received as information, updates on council conferences and/or workshops, council payable listing, and council committee notes, June 11th, 2024. We'll start off with council conferences. Councillor Jessica.
Thank you. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities held their 2024 convention in Calgary. There was about 3,000 delegates in attendance, and including Councillors Nesbitt, Idris, and myself. And it was interesting. One of the things that was one of the initial topics of discussion was they're proposing a municipal growth framework and redefining our future, the need for a municipal growth framework. So the FCM is proposing a new cooperative arrangement between all government levels. And I think we, as a municipal government, we see the need for that as we seem to be pushed further and further down and out of the path of progress. So it would go from project by project funding to integrated planning. So example, if you're going to have a wastewater project, then you also look at what's going to happen down the road with housing and make sure that you include future factors. And they said municipal priorities should also be provincial priorities, which I guess goes a little bit in the way direction relationships have been going between the provincial government here and municipalities. So the FCM is saying that we don't need the province acting between the municipal and federal governments. We did hear from, it was represented, the different parties were represented by the Prime Minister and by the leaders of the Green Party and the NDP Party. The only representative that spoke for the Youth Conservative Party was Scott Aitchison, who is a Conservative shadow housing minister. And he said that taxing at all levels is the most significant housing cost, and Canada is too slow with approvals, and federal fiscal responsibility should be taxes and cleaning up inefficient bureaucracy. So that's what he had to say about it. I did go on one tour, and that was the Green for Life MRF, or Materials Recycling Facility, and it was quite an incredible facility. So Calgary has had a Blue Box program for quite a while, I think a couple of decades, but now they've spread it to all residential housing. And so GFL has built a facility to handle all these mixed recyclables from the city of Calgary. So if you've got cardboard, paper, plastics, glass, metals, they all go in one bag and it goes to this facility to be sorted. They're handling 110 trucks a day, about 55,000 tons a year. Highly automated, though there is still some manual sorting lines. I really wouldn't want to be on one because I sure can't move that fast. And the majority of the products are going to Canada and the US. And I guess the question I would have is how this will fit in with the future extended producer responsibility, where Brooks is going to be required to have a Blue Box program. And will we be dealing with it ourselves, or will it wind up being trucked to Calgary to this facility to be sorted? So that'll be a question for the next DPR meeting. So Justin Trudeau spoke and had quite a bit to say, and then I actually had an open mic. And there was a real stampede to the microphones when they had the open mic. So These are some of the questions. These are the questions that came up in the time that was allowed. So he was asked if he supported all levels of government working together, and the answer was yes. He was asked about the $1 trillion debt, increased carrying costs of that debt, and when will the budget be balanced? So I think you've all heard this before. He talked about how Canada's economy is one of the healthiest developed countries with the lowest debt to GDP ratio and high foreign investment. And while Canadians are squeezed individually, the spending that was done has been good for Canadians and the economy, and they are now investing back into things like dental care, child care, et cetera, to take some of the pressure off the citizens. So I was raised to think that being in debt was not a good thing, but apparently I'm wrong. Alberta Oil and Gas is a clean energy and doesn't need the carbon tax, was a statement that was made to him, and he said, we need to respond to the challenge of carbon tax while creating good jobs. 8 out of 10 get more back than they are taxed. Funding for the homeless was brought up, and he said in the last year's $200 billion 10-year plan, mental health was overlooked and is now being included. Grassy Narrows and Indigenous in general water quality problems were brought up, and he said that federal government has made a commitment and it is a complex problem. Bill 18, provincial and federal governments need to be at the table. They keep talking about, and it was a question, and the Prime Minister answered that it is really a fundamental question. We all have to work together again. You know, it seems to be easy to say, hard to do. But he says that the federal government is stepping up to the table and the provinces are stepping back. And the shortage of family physicians. So access, he responded that access to primary care is fundamental and a core element of the $200 billion 10-year program. And the responsibility of accreditation falls on the provinces. So they'll have to do their part to make it work. So that was what I brought back from the conference. One other smaller event that I participated in was an Alberta Municipal Climate Leadership Council meeting, and it was a workshop focused on more sustainable transportation models and practices. Much of it was on the multiple initiatives Banff has and will institute to help deal with the impact of the very heavy tourist traffic they experience. And these include electric buses, closing busy main streets to traffic, and limiting parking to support bus use. Discussions also centered on things like electric scooter and bicycle rentals. There was a presentation on the benefits of a municipal transit system, which was relevant to the city, which we've been considering an updated pilot project. So, one of the things I mentioned in the past on Alberta Municipalities Climate Leadership Council is they were putting together a planner tool, and it is up and running. And it has a baseline data for many communities, including Brooks. So you can go onto their site, and they'll have a breakdown of the activities in Brooks right up to the packing plant and how that is affecting the local climate markers. So the different energy usage and pollution production indices. So you can go in there and say, okay, well, if we put in a municipal transit system, how will that affect our outputs? And it'll adjust it for that. So that's actually quite interesting. If anyone wants to have a look at that, it's on the Alberta Municipal Climate Leadership Council meeting website, or Alberta Municipal Climate Leadership Council, and it's called the Planner Tool. So it's, if you want something to play with instead of Minecraft. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jessica. Okay, Councillor Idris.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor Jessica, because he really covered a lot of what happened at the conference. For me, this was my first time attending the Federation of Canadian Municipalities conference. It was a very good experience to see how these municipal issues also play in the federal scheme of things, because we go to the provincial convention, and it's mainly municipal provincial issues, but there some major things like housing, for example, infrastructure came up, and this idea of municipal growth framework is something that I think the FCM really played a very strong push to really show the federal government specifically, but all levels of government, that we are really using 19th century techniques, 19th century rules, 19th century regulations to fund municipalities in the 21st century, and that doesn't balance. We have a significant infrastructure deficit in our country, where I don't have the exact number, but where we are responsible for 80% of the infrastructure of Canada, with less than 5% of the revenues of the country, and that doesn't align. And I think they have pushed few different things through the federal government, and now they have the Green Municipal Fund, where there is I think about $2 billion now in it. Different municipalities are trying to access it, and they are trying to find different ways for municipalities to be able to access that through the FCM support and through the FCM. There are people who will. They actually had they did this thing, a park in the FCM conference, where you could go and talk to the staff and see how can they support you. They will actually work through your ideas and support you through your application process to be able to get some money from that fund. So that was a big focus of the conference. The other big focus of the conference was housing, and of course we know why. We live in a crisis when it comes to housing here in Brooks, as well as in Toronto or any big city, and that's actually why the only federal minister that was at the conference was the Minister of Housing. There was a session with him where he spoke about some of the work that they have done in the last year and a half, and also some of the future work that's coming up in the next little while. Of course, the idea of, for example, rural and remote communities not getting grants approved under their new grant scheme came up. He talked about transportation. He talked about a couple different things. He talked about now they are looking into how they can review it so that they make rural communities and urban rural communities more able to access that fund. We met with the three leadership of the federal parties, except the Conservative government, the Conservative Party. They sent the leader sent a representative, and it was good to see that the four federal parties really value the municipalities to come to the conference, or the three federal parties value the municipalities to come and speak directly with the municipal leaders, because there is that realization that really, yes, we have federal government and provincial government, but the municipal government is the closest to the Canadians and the closest to the issues of Canadians. There was a tone of, we would like to work with you, we would like to support you, we would like to see how can we fix some of the issues that we have, from the three federal leaders that came to the convention. The Conservative government, unfortunately, the tone was that you are the problem, you don't know what you are doing, and when we make government next year, we will give money only to the people who listen to us. I don't know, but I felt that wasn't actually a good tone. I actually think maybe the FCM also felt that wasn't a good tone, because the president of the FCM, once the Conservative speaker finished, although wasn't in the program, came up and responded to the speech that he gave. I attended the AGM and I attended the resolution session. There was 4 resolutions passed, and 1 resolution was defeated by the membership. And again, it's very, very interested to see the difference between how we do resolution in our AB convention versus how the FCM does it. So the 4 resolutions that passed was asking the government to strengthen recruitment for RCMP, because there is RCMP is experiencing a significant shortage in staffing, which is impacting safety in the communities that the RCMP works with. The second resolution that passed was again asking for federal support for food banks and farmers markets. Actually, that was an amendment that came through on the floor. if you remember, our farmer market last year did this project where they were supporting food security. That came up actually, and it was pushed by some rural communities and communities that have farmers markets and agriculture farmers in general. So it's asking the government to support food security or to address the food security issue through emergency funding for food banks and farmers market in communities where there are farmers market. The third resolution that passed was again asking the government, the federal government, to bring regulations and legislations to address the harassment of elected municipal officials. This toxic political environment that we are living in right now came up many times throughout the conference. There was actually a forum that there was like 5 speakers between elected officials, researchers, and advocacy groups that are trying to really tone down this toxic political environment that we are in. But also there was a resolution to ask the federal government to address that. And not only harassment to elected officials from the public, but also harassment to elected officials from each other. There are some councils that you hear about the issues, and you hear about how issues in council are addressed through Twitter and Facebook by other councillors and between themselves. So that also came up. The fourth resolution that passed was again to enhance support for shelters that support women and survivors of intimate partner violence. It came up as this is an issue that is a trend now that we are seeing, where intimate partnership violence is increasing in our communities, and that was trying to address that. The resolution that was defeated was asking the federal government to support municipalities to address biodiversity protection. There are many places where there are certain ecological environments where where it's maybe these flowers or these, I'm not that much into environment, that needs to be supported. So they were trying to ask the federal government to support municipalities to protect those places, but that was defeated because they believe that there are other agencies that are doing that, and there are other places that could be supporting that. Finally, there was a rural forum, and again, that was again good to see that within this federal environment we live in, there is a focus at the FCM level on rural municipalities. One last thing, it was very interesting again to see how you work through the 3-4 days, starting from your own caucus. The Alberta caucus did their elections and passed their recommendations, and so it was a good learning for me personally to learn how you work in the FCM through that caucus level, to bring your issues, to bring your because unless you have your own caucus that will take your issues could be lost within that big more than 2,000 municipalities membership. So we talked about some issues in the Alberta caucus, and then we brought it forward through every caucus has a leader. You bring it through the leaders to the FCM, and that's how they work. So it was a good experience, and I wish, or I hope that we will be able to keep participating with the FCM and send more people to the FCM. Thank you.
I have a question. You were talking about the old-fashioned way to fund infrastructure. I didn't clarify me. Did they offer a solution to that?
Yes, and that is what they are trying to do through the municipal growth framework, and that is what Ray talked about, that don't do project-to-project funding, but do fundings that are integrated, that are, when you address one thing, you are addressing everything, and also when you are building an infrastructure, you are also addressing the sustainability of that infrastructure through funding.
Okay, good. Okay, any other questions? Okay. To the motion, all those in favor? Carried. Now, I think, because we're close to 5 o'clock here, yeah, well, 5 o'clock right on the money here. Gavin, I think you're probably up on this one here. I'd like to call this public meeting to order at 5 p.m. Reference of bylaw 2416, amendment to land use bylaw 1412. I'll call the meeting to order there. And Gavin, if you can give an explanation of the proposed bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, through the chair to mayor and council, we have bylaw 2416 proposed to create textual changes to the land use bylaw 1412. As per the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, a public hearing must be held prior to the council's decision on the bylaw of this nature. At the time of writing the report this report, no public comments were received in favor or opposed to this bylaw. This residential land use update has been initiated by multiple observations, both internal and external to the City of Brooks. Although initial requests by developers have focused on the allowance for secondary suites to be included in semi-detached housing and townhouses. These changes could not be taken in simple isolation within the broader context of housing needs and the practical execution of the land use bylaw. The land use bylaw is a living document and needs to be constantly reviewed and altered to suit the demands of a community as it grows. As such, the attached proposed revisions need to be understood in the broader context of other existing documents, including the Municipal Development Plan, all adopted area structure plans, and Alberta safety codes. The proposed amendments are consistent with the objectives and policies of the Municipal Development Plan, and therefore can be supported without amendment to that document. The objectives and policies of the 4 residential sector area structure plans, however, may not, given their various dates of adoption, be fully complementary. Although the Municipal Government Act does not require consistency between the statutory plans and the land use bylaw, practicality does require that, as documents are reviewed, that the inconsistencies be addressed by council as it sees fit. During this review, Alberta Safety Code's requirements for secondary suites were reviewed, and the proposed changes are not at odds with that document. Secondary suite development has both building criteria as well as defined by the province, and the development control requirements as defined by the city. In the current bylaw, secondary suites were limited to single unit dwelling types, whereas the building code allows for them in other building types. A review of other municipalities showed that the most are moving towards allowing secondary suites in townhomes, row houses, semi-detached housing types, where these dwellings are on individual titles. It is this change that appears in the bylaw amendment. Further changes include clarification and definition of multi-unit development types, whereas townhouses have a specific connotation as a dwelling type, units being units in a row. Multi-unit dwellings, more commonly developed as 4 and 6 plexes, are seen seen to be different and have been defined as such. The townhome definition has been redefined to include semi-detached, being 2 units side by side, and it has been renamed as attached housing. 2 new housing definitions have been introduced, those being cluster housing, which provides for small square footage single unit development to occur on one lot. Multiple unit residential development has also been introduced to capture development like the Wellings of Brooks development. This development style includes multiple buildings, each with multiple units, all developed on a single lot. To assist developers, staff, council, and the public in understanding the impacts of redesignation to higher density developments, A new land use district is being introduced between residential low density and residential high density. Whereas residential low density is being limited to 4 dwelling units, and the new district is residential medium density will be limited to 8 dwelling units, leaving residential high density to take on all development above 8 dwelling units. The big pro here is that that the density is being clarified for processing the development proposals. The con is that some existing development between 5 and 8 units will not initially be designated to this zone. This will not affect their continuation in housing except where they desire to do an additional development. Staff will be bringing forward a subsequent bylaw to rectify this reality. In regards to parking requirements, it is recommended that the standard for residential parking be kept as defined in the land use bylaw. Although working towards transit options, the City of Brooks as a city is vehicularly oriented and parking remains part of the culture. Whereas development, where appropriate, the Municipal Planning Commission has options within the bylaw for when parking standards are to be varied, and these options will be explored and discussed during the processing of every residential development application. Finally, several other amendments are contained within the draft where inconsistencies in term or missing information was to clarify the bylaw's intent. In the attached bylaw amendment, Schedule A, the edits appear in 2 forms, red representing the additions and text strike through represents the deletion. This evening I have a recommendation to proceed with second and third reading.
Okay, any person speaking in favor of the proposed bylaw? I see none. Any person speaking in opposition of the proposed bylaw? Okay. Did she approach the table? She's approached, so she can approach the table. Yeah, you can come to the table, yeah. State your name for the record. Turn on your mic there. Go ahead.
Tammy McElwraith?
Yeah.
Did you folks not receive my email on Friday that I had sent? They said, I'm at the right meeting, right? They said if you wish to make a comment and, okay.
Yeah.
So you had indicated, Gavin, that there was no information sent?
Yeah, I write this report well ahead of Friday, so at the time I had not received any concerns.
Okay, it's stated on the website by July 14th at 4:30 p.m. And I had sent it to, no? Okay, so I had sent an email, right? Because I was under the understanding is that that was to be sent in advance of this meeting for time to read. So I'm now going to be reading verbatim basically what I had sent on Friday then. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's unfortunate that you folks didn't receive it earlier. So what is the City of Brooks doing to ensure homeowners are not creating secondary suites or rents illegally without the appropriate permits and requirements? I live on Ash Street, and there has already been a permit that was granted for secondary suite. There is another one that has been established as a multi-unit, cluster unit, it seems, that I'm concerned is developing on Ash Street. We have limited street parking. We have no back alley access on either side, okay? And so November 2023, when I had to leave in the early morning hours, as many people on Ash Street, I was unable to because there was a SWAT team there. And so my access was restricted from leaving out Ash Street, and I had to leave out through the trailer park, Caprit. And so at the best of times, that has had congestion and issues with road infrastructure. And so that happened throughout the whole day, that people were limited in the early morning hours and after work to use that road. So what if in the event there was an emergency and we continue to allow secondary suites on streets like Ash Street where there is this limited residential or when there is limited street access parking, and so somebody needs to leave and there's an emergency. So what are the implications if somebody has an emergency of which they can't leave soon enough, or emergency can't respond, because we continue to allow cluster and multi-development on streets where we don't have the appropriate park and lane access? So this was my concern. So what is the City of Brooks and the Municipal Planning Commission doing to address this and to ensure this isn't going to be an ongoing issue? When is there a limit on the amount of secondary suites that are allowed on a street? Or as you're saying, Gavin, with 5 to 8 units. So what is a 5 to 8 unit? Is that a street? So
Yeah, we'll direct the.
okay, sorry. So I'm like, okay, this is, yeah.
I don't want to get into a debate there, yeah.
So this is my concern, and
give
these
you
are
a
all
chance
things that
to
I sent to you folks in the email, right? I had done my due
So just to
justice.
summarize your
And I
question.
even sent it to you, Mr. Mayor Petrie.
Yeah, and I just assumed that the department got it, so, yeah. But anyway, so your.
Twice I sent an email, nobody responded to me. I sent one June 4th, and then I sent one June 14th.
Okay, anyway, your question is, what are we doing with illegal secondary suites?
Well, there's that factor, but at that aside right now, what are we doing to address the development of multi-cluster?
Yeah, okay, let's do the
Yeah.
first one first, okay, and I don't know if Gavin answers that or Amanda answers that there, or if this is the right place. for it.
Yeah, so illegal secondary suites, anytime there's an illegal suite, it is incumbent on a complaint-driven process, case by case. As they come up, it can be investigated by the department, and action can be taken via a warning letter and then through the stop order process. The other example that was brought up is Ash Street. Now, that was an MPC decision. It went to appeal. It was accepted on appeal. So again, that was a case-by-case basis. It was a residence with a secondary suite, which is already in the bylaw. That has nothing to do with the changes this evening. The focus of this evening's bylaw is the introduction of other alternate types of secondary suites. Now, there's no row houses on Ash Street, so there's no problems there. These are single detached dwellings. So again, most of these approvals will go through MPC, who has the ability to circulate, understand from the public what the concerns are, and make their decision from there. Ash Street received its first and only secondary suite approval during this process, as I mentioned. It is not known whether another one will be approved now or if ever. But again, the process has to be walked through, and the bylaw this evening is addressing other issues.
Well, I did send, so sorry, Gavin, you weren't included in the email, but I did send an email to the mayor and to the development, June 4th I sent. So I have yet to hear a response on 2 of the emails that I have sent. And that's very disheartening. So, and it's disheartening because I did my due diligence to make sure that I sent this information forward prior to this meeting with the caveat that you folks were going to be reading this. So, there is concerns of another unit, our house on Ash Street right now, which is turned into a rental and with secondary suites. And I had sent Mayor Petrie all of this information, right? I sent proof of this, and that I never got a response back. So now I'm thinking, in addition to the one that was already approved in November, we now have another one that's been established, and we have limited street access parking. We have no back alley access on either side of Ash Street. And so when does it start becoming, a bigger, broader discussion is what does future development look like when there is streets, such as Ash, where there is that limited access, but they are residential, single detached, that technically under the bylaw, I guess makes them eligible for a secondary suite permit. Potentially. So that means that, there could be more than just 2 now on Ash Street. There could be 3 or 4. So I guess what I was seeking to understand, and I asked that when I appealed this in November, and I never got my questions answered, is when does it come to a point where those matters of concern start being addressed.
Yeah, just, and a clarification, if it's, an approved secondary suite that went through MPC, you know, yeah, okay, but if it's an illegal suite, and we worry about illegal suites because we worry in cases of fires and things like that, but are we?
I sent you that information, Mayor Petrie, twice about that. That was my concern. I said, I don't even know if it's meeting safety codes with what's going on right now.
Yeah, and, I don't know, is this the right, point where we should be discussing this here? And I don't know, maybe no. I think I'll defer to Amanda, then maybe we, yeah.
This is not the right forum for this, as Gavin had said, that this, what she's speaking to has nothing to do with the bylaw that we are bringing forward or having the public hearing on. Unfortunately, I'm not sure where the disconnect was with the email. I'm not sure if you sent it to a particular staff member or whatnot, but I was never in receipt of that email. But again, if there's a secondary suite on Ash Street, that would be something that would come forward to MPC, I believe. But again, the bylaw that we're trying to pass right now, it differs from what is being discussed right now.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I was just going based on the website, and I had sent forward information that I wanted to ask and have addressed, if possible, right? Sorry, Amanda, I would have sent you, include you in the email, but it wasn't clear, right?
Let me follow up on that there. Okay, I'll follow up on you on that one, okay?
Pardon me?
I'll follow up on the email. I'll track it back and see what happened and why you weren't acknowledged on that.
Okay, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was part of what
Yeah.
brought me here, though, folks, is that I wanted to know, I guess, what is the future plan and development before we decide to sit there and pass motions on allowing multi-clusters when there isn't an issue discussing what the development is going to look like in the future for...
Yeah, in most cases, I mean, when there's a development, it's always advertised, and there's always, correct me if I'm wrong, there's usually public hearings and things like that for that. So you should know what's going on in your neighborhood.
Well, I do,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah, no,
Gavin
yeah,
said,
yeah,
people can
yeah.
investigate it,
Yeah,
right? It could be sent,
yeah,
and I did send
yeah.
something to be investigated
And the other
in
point
November.
I want, and as Councillor Idris mentioned earlier, he was at a conference there, one of the major issues we have in Brooks, along with the rest of Canada, is housing. So we're trying to create an environment where, where we open up the door for more housing on that. So that's what we're trying to do. But I agree with you that we have to be cognizant of parking, and we are cognizant of parking.
And safety.
And safety. Safety, if there is an issue there, and it's not in legal secondary suite.
No, I'm talking about
yeah, yeah.
safety in the future if we continue to allow development on a
Yeah.
street where there's limited access, parking, right? That's what I'm talking about. Is the forest for the trees being considered?
Yeah.
That if you just say hypothetically had 3 or more, secondary suites on Ash Street, which doesn't have back alley access on either side, is that setting it up for potential for some imminent danger that could happen because there's no limited access to get out in case of an emergency?
Okay. I don't have any.
That's,
Okay,
I think,
okay,
worthy
yeah,
of
okay, good.
consideration.
Yeah, okay, thanks for your time there, yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
we can't until after, no, until the bylaw comes, yeah. Just the point of order there too, yeah, okay. Okay, any final comments then, Gavin?
I am fine, thank you.
Oh, okay, so I adjourn this at 5:18. And for your information, the bylaw reading comes up a little bit later on the council meeting here too, there. Okay, moved by Councillor Nesbitt that the administrative report, the PBR Coy Larson Memorial Event Review be accepted as information. Randy.
Hi, through the chair to mayor and council. Just wanted to provide an overview of the Coy Larson professional bull riding event that took place at the Centennial Regional Arena last month, May 10th. And just a little bit on how the setup and takedown went because it was quite the undertaking and some of the highlights and challenges of that event. Next slide. So setup started on Monday, May 6th, and that was with the ice decking. So you can see that in the top left corner of the picture there. So that's just our regular event ice decking. The poly and plywood was laid down after that. That was all completed by the end of the day Tuesday. Oh, is it going too fast? Oh, it's not automatic, right? Okay. That was completed by the end of the day Tuesday, and it did take a bit of extra time this year just because of the plywood having to be cut to fit the corners and the edges and stuff like that. So the stairs to the floor were also installed, which involved the removal of some of the arena glass. So here you can see the photo Wednesday, May 8th. The boards were covered in that heavy black plastic. The staging was loaded in, and the audio and lighting were installed as well. They also installed a very large LED screen on the east side, or west side, sorry, of the arena. And then on Thursday, May 9th, you can see here the dirt and steel being brought in and put on the floor, the VIP area set up in the back, and the PBR audio system was installed. So they actually used both the CRA sound system and the PBR, brought their own sound system for the event. Next. So this is just a little bit more of the setup on Thursday. You can see the far end there where they have the VIP area set up and the staging and lighting for the concert being set up there. You can see the lift. They had lighting and speakers from the trusses. Sponsorship signage was all installed this day as well. And on Friday, May 10th, that was the morning of the event, the pyro was installed and tested. There was sound checks for the bull riding event and the concert, both done that day. The doors opened at 6 p.m. and the bull riding event started at 7. So the next video is just of the opening ceremonies there with some of the pyro. So the audio wasn't best for that, but you got the idea. And just so you all know, the fire department was on site for the duration of the event as well. So thanks to Kevin and Barry and the volunteer firefighters, they provided security for the event, so that was really good. Some photos during the event here. So this is the west side of the arena looking east. You can see the concert set up in the back. And this is just from the Zamboni gate. So that was kind of like a little bird cage in the middle. People actually paid to watch the bull riding in the middle of the arena like that. And then the next photo, you can kind of see the chutes. So they had the bulls all outside on the west side of the building in the parking lot. And then they brought them in through those the chutes there through the Zamboni gate. So it was a lot of work to make sure that the header trench for the ice plant and whatnot was all covered up so that it didn't get any dirt in there. And here's just a quick video of some of the action. And then, of course, we had the Corb Lund concert after the bull riding. It started about 10 p.m. There were some challenges at this time with the lighting on the concourse. So with the concourse lights, it's an all or nothing. They're either on or off. If they were on, they thought it was too bright, and if it was off, it was really, really dark. So that's something the organizers are going to be looking at if they have the event again next year. The concourse was also quite congested, so they are going to look at that as well. They did have a couple bars set up on the concourse and the picnic tables set up as well. The picnic tables weren't well used, so that's something that they'll probably look at not having just to keep the flow of people going a bit better. takedown started immediately after the bull riding. So here you can see the concerts going on, the floor is packed with people, and there's some of the PBR event staff already hauling stuff out, the west side of the arena there. So equipment and steel was being dismantled and hauled out while the concert was taking place. The dirt and the remaining equipment was taken out on Saturday morning and was complete by early Saturday afternoon. And then city staff took down the staging, secured the netting, removed the stairs starting on Saturday. Plywood removal, decking was all completed on May 13th. And here we have a picture of the Brooks Bandits. We had about 30 of their players and staff out there helping remove that decking. And they were ready to go skating on the Wednesday morning. So it was a couple days sooner. This is just a time lapse of the event, set up and takedown. So this was done by Dryson with the Bandits. He had the time lapse camera set up, and it's kind of neat to see. Makes it look so easy, right? And there it is, ready for hockey on the Friday. And the ice was actually in really, really good shape afterwards. So the poly and the plywood worked very, very well. There was not a lot of repair needed, so that was really good news. Just wanted to give a quick overview of the May ice use. So this is just after the PBR was done until June 2nd. So these numbers don't include like the Bandit Spring Camp that happened at the beginning of May. So there was 58.5 hours booked. The vast majority of that was Bandits Ice, so their practices and games. There were 3 hours booked by the Sherwood Park Crusaders for their series that they had here, and 8 hours of private bookings, and the revenue totaled just over $6,000. There was 31 hours of public programming scheduled, so that includes any shinny times, stick and puck, public skating, and averaged about 5 patrons per session for those programs. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Goodenough.
Great job. I knew you could do it. I'm just wondering, on the sheets of plywood, I saw some, did any get damaged? Like, how do you feel that for the next event? Are we going to be replacing quite a few? I know that was a question that we asked a lot, so.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Goodenough. Most of them fared quite well. There were some that were damaged, and actually some, when we received them, were quite bowed, so they actually had to be screwed down. But we will be able to reuse the majority of it, so the cost, as far as that goes, will be much less next year. So we do again.
Have they booked for next year, the PVR?
Through the chair to Mayor Petrie, no, they haven't booked yet.
Oh, okay. Because I know we had a big investment in this one with the potential of maybe using the arena more in the wintertime. Do you foresee that?
I am hopeful, yes, that they will.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, any other questions? Okay, to the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, moved by Councillor Prentice that July 5th, 2024 be hereby proclaimed as National Injury Prevention Day in the city of Brooks. And Amy.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mayor and Council. July 5th, 2024 will mark the 8th annual National Injury Prevention Day, which is to raise awareness about the devastating effects of predictable and preventable injuries. Injuries remain a leading cause of death and disability in Alberta. These injuries cost Albertans over $7.1 billion a year. And beyond the financial cost is the pain, suffering, and loss experienced by those who have lost loved ones or support injury survivors. Everyone in Canada is invited to light it up green on National Injury Prevention Day to raise awareness about the importance of injury prevention, and they are requesting that the lights at City Hall be changed to green on July 5th. Locally, they will be taking to social media to educate and make the community aware of injury prevention, and they have also been running bike rodeos and skateboard camps to bring awareness to helmet safety. Therefore, AHS Health Promotions is respectfully requesting July 5th be proclaimed as National Injury Prevention Day.
Okay, any questions? To the motion, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, moved by Councillor Wardrop that council approve the 2024 Regional Fire Safety Trailer purchase to JHB Group Inc. in the amount of $278,976.35 to be purchased in 2024, and that $13,200 be funded by operations, $6,800 funded by ICF County, and the remaining $258,976.35 be funded by donations. Kevin.
Thank you, Your Worship, through Mayor and all of Council. In the city's 10-year capital plan, the fire department has a regional fire safety trailer budgeted for purchase in year 2024. The city sole search the only manufacturer of wheelchair-accessible, solar-powered mobile training centers that are fully interacted with realistic fire prevention training aids that can be tailored to both children and adults. The price for this fire safety simulator is in the amount of $278,976.35, supplied by JHB Group Incorporated. The budget for 2024 is $200,000, of which $20,000 funded by operations, 34% of the $20,000 funded by county ICF, and the remaining $180,000 funded by donations in the budget. As we have been very successful in collecting donations for this project, the overage of $78,976.35 will be absorbed through these contributions. Staff wishes to recognize the extraordinary community support for this educational initiative. Therefore, staff recommends that Council approve the 2024 Regional Fire Safety Trailer purchase to JHB Group Incorporated in the amount of $278,976.35 to be purchased in 2024, and that $13,200 be funded by operations, that $6,800 be funded by ICF County, and the remaining $258,976.35 be funded by donations. If there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Any questions? Okay, to the motion, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Idris that Council cancel the following meetings. Council committee meeting scheduled for July 9th, 2024 at 4:30. Council meeting scheduled for July 15th, 2024 at 4:30. Council committee meeting scheduled for July 23rd, 2024 at 4:30. Council meeting scheduled for August 6th, 2024 at 4:30. Council committee meeting scheduled for August 13th, 2024 at 4:30. Council meeting scheduled for August 19th, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. Amanda.
Through the chair to Mayor and Council, again, in your package is the proposed council and council committee cancellation schedule for the summer. Again, those meetings for July are the council committee meetings being held on July 9th and July 23rd, both at 4:30 p.m. And then the council meeting for July 15th, starting at 4:30 p.m. For the month of August, council committee meeting being canceled on the 6th, as well as the 19th at 4:30, and then the council committee meeting be canceled August 13th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. If council approves of canceling the above noted meetings, the following are the only council and council committee meetings that would be held in July and August. So council meeting July 2nd, beginning at 4:30, and council committee on August 27th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. as well. This schedule also results in a break after the July 2nd council meeting until the council committee meeting that will be held on on August 27th. And should any emergent matters arise, a special council meeting will be called. And therefore, administration is recommending that council cancel the following meetings as outlined within the agenda package.
Okay, any questions to the motion? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Goodenough that the financial variance report for June be accepted as information. Shelley.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to Mayor and Council. So as you can see, I have very little to report this month. I have updated and prepared variance reports reflecting any variances from the 2024 budget. We're approximately 45% through the year already. And overall, since my last report, I haven't noted any variances. We're pretty much in line with our operating budget and our capital projects. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, the recommendation is that this report be accepted as information.
Okay, any questions? Okay, to the motion, all those in favor? Carried. Okay, now this is a long one here, so bear with me here. Moved by Councillor Nesbitt that Council approve development permit 24D44 with the following conditions. Development to conform to application, including any plans and drawings deemed complete by the development officer on June 12, 2024 to Land Use Bylaw 1412 unless otherwise approved by the Development Authority. Development must be completed in its entirety in accordance with approved plans and conditions. Any revisions to the approved plans must be submitted for approval to the Development Authority. All relevant safety code permits, building, electrical, gas, plumbing must be obtained from an accredited agency pursuant to the Safety Codes Act. A copy of the final inspections indicating compliance must be filed with the city immediately following receipt of the same. The property owner developer is required to enter into a development agreement with the City of Brooks. The property owner developer is required to work with Canada Post to provide mail delivery and collection facilities for the new dwellings and accommodate existing mail delivery and collection facilities. The property owner developer is required to provide garbage collection facilities to the satisfaction of the Superintendent of Works and Utilities. The applicant must apply for water and sewer connection permit to prior connection to city services. The water and sewer permit application must include a servicing plan showing the proposed location and size of services to the satisfaction of the Superintendent of Works and Utilities. The City of Brooks Public Works Department must be contacted for inspection prior to backfilling. The paved areas on site and the driveway accesses shall be constructed to the satisfaction of the City of Brooks Public Works Department prior to occupancy. The property owner developer is to repair or reinstate or pay for the repair or reinstatement to original condition of any city-owned infrastructure, including but not limited to street furniture, curbing, sidewalk, boulevard landscaping, and tree planting that may be damaged or destroyed or otherwise harmed by development and or building operations on the site. All repair or reinstatement work must be completed by the city-approved contractor. The property owner developer must notify the city if they're going to have to destroy or replace any city-owned infrastructure. All surface water must drain from the building site to the street or lane and shall not adversely affect neighboring properties. The site must meet the minimum drainage grade of 2% away from the buildings located on the lot. Should retaining walls be required, they are to be constructed at the expense of the property owner developer. Any off-site construction will be restored as per the City of Brooks construction specifications, must be inspected by the City of Brooks, and must maintain the existing City of Brooks stormwater management. Suitable measures to ensure the above is adhered to must be employed from the onset of development and shall remain in place throughout all stages of excavation, construction, and landscaping. And as-built grading plan must be submitted by the Alberta Land Survey once construction is complete. A detailed grading plan shall be reviewed and approved by the City of Brooks Public Works Department prior to receiving a building permit. The grading must be completed as per the approved grading plan, An as-built grading plan must be submitted by the Alberta Land Surveyor once construction is complete. A detailed stormwater management plan shall be reviewed and approved by the City of Brooks Public Works Department. All stormwater management must be constructed as per the approved plan. The two lots legally described as Plan 961-1434, Block 8, Lot 68-69 must be consolidated into one lot before construction begins. The property owner developer is to pay any applicable offsite levies as per bylaw 2124, and any subsequent amendments thereto before construction begins. The new home energy code requirement details must be submitted to the City of Brooks prior to issuance of the building permit. The new home warranty approved new home registration must be submitted to the City of Brooks prior to issuance of the building permit. The fire safety plan must be submitted to the City of Brooks prior to the issuance of the building permit. The applicant shall meet the requirements of the Alberta Fire Code. Now, the short version, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to Mayor and Council, the City of Brooks has received an application to build a multifamily development of townhouses on 2 vacant lots located on the west end of town at 175 and 207 Pleasant Park Road. The map of the location is attached. The lots are 2 lots, but we have required as a condition of development that the developer will consolidate them. Both of them are zoned direct control. Any development proposed on a direct control lot needs to be approved by council, and all uses are considered discretionary. So because of such, all development requires requirements such as the setbacks, your site coverage, building height, floor area, and parking requirements are at the discretion of council. Nothing is listed within the land use bylaw. The surrounding neighborhood around Pleasant Park is a mixture of different zonings, which includes some residential small lot, residential low density, residential single detached, and residential high density. The lands adjacent directly to the south are city-owned green space. We have a paved pathway there. And to the west is privately owned and currently undeveloped, also listed as direct control. There's a large amount of green space in the surrounding area with the West End Park. There's paved pathways, playgrounds, the Riley Martin Ball Diamonds, and the Marshall Drain. So the owner and developer of this lot, these 2 lots, intends to develop 36 semi-detached units, of which 24 of the units will actually be 2 rental suites, for a total of 60 housing units. There's a site plan attached which shows the location and the layout of the units, where the parking spaces will be, all of the green and amenity space, and the road access that they plan to construct. Due to the nature of this development, being that it's a multi-unit semi-detached, staff requested the developer follow the requirements of the residential high-density district, simply just because that's essentially what they're developing. So parking requirements in RHD are to have 2 on-site parking stalls per dwelling unit, which would create a total of a requirement of 120 on-site parking stalls. The site plan currently allows for 92 on-site parking stalls and 20 on-street parking stalls. The setback requirements in RHD are 5 meters in the front. The site plan is showing 3 meters. 5 meters in the rear, and the site plan is showing 4 meters, and 1.5 meters on either side, but the site plan is showing 3 meters, so we're within there. The minimum lot dimensions, maximum building height, minimum floor areas, and the maximum site coverage are all within the requirements on RHD. But because this property is zoned direct control, there are no actual measurable development requirements, and therefore no variances required. We just ask the developer follow the requirements of RHD just as guidelines. They don't actually require any variances. Staff has circulated the development permit application to adjacent landowners as well as external stakeholders. One comment was received from Canada Post regarding the location of an existing mailbox on the site, which has been there since the late 90s. And staff did add a condition to the development permit that the developer would have to work with Canada Post to either relocate that or work with them to make sure it's accessible. So at this time, I'm available if anybody has any questions, but staff is recommending that council approve development permit 24-D-44 with the previously mentioned conditions, which I will not read again.
Okay, any questions? Councillor Goodenough.
Sorry, just for clarification, did you say these are rental suites or they're going to be for purchase too?
Through the chair to Councillor Goodenough, they're rental suites, so, which is making it a multifamily development as opposed to suites or a townhouse with a secondary suites. So the whole thing will be singular ownership rental suites.
Single ownership,
Rental suites.
rentals.
They own all the property.
Okay, okay, I get it.
All 60 units, yeah.
Are owned by one
person.
ownership, and he's renting it. Okay, all right.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you for that clarification.
Yeah, Councillor Wardrop.
So under our new proposed bylaw, this would be cluster housing. Would this be a cluster? No, sorry, Gavin, I failed. I should have just asked, what term is this housing under our new proposed bylaw?
It's still residential high density, right? Multi-unit.
Even if it's all on one property and the, okay.
Yeah, cluster housing is much smaller in quantity. This, because it's 60 dwelling units, it's high density.
Okay.
Go ahead if you, Councillor Idris.
Thank you, Lisa. And exciting project. My question is regarding these variances. And I do understand with direct control you don't have these variances. But when you look at the high density, you see why the wise council did that with the high density, and now we are asking for it to be okayed. Is it a safety thing with these variances? Is it like, and do you think these changes or these lower stats we have here will still be okay?
Through the chair to Councillor Idris, when we speak about setback variances, a lot of the time it's a fire code issue, considering that the site plan for this property is either bordering vacant land or an alley. If they do not meet the exact setbacks that you would be required to under residential high density, it's less of an issue because there's no actual adjacent building right near it. The other big, what would require variance if the lot was actually zoned RHD would be the parking. They're currently sitting at about a 23% variance, and the Municipal Planning Commission has issued higher variances for residential high density. The Municipal Planning Commission also has past practice of approving parking, on-street parking to be included within the parking requirements of residential high density. We've seen a varying tolerance, I suppose, for levels of parking required through the years when it comes to high density developments, but we haven't had a lot of these come through, I guess, in the past little while. So it's difficult to show specifically what the past practice has been. The parking thing has always been a concern with council, as well as the Municipal Planning Commission and staff. We know that we do get complaints about parking, and we do have quite conservative requirements within our land use bylaw. So we see it on both sides, that the developers say you're requiring too much parking, but then we do get complaints from the community that state that there's not enough parking for some. So it kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah, Councillor Idris.
Okay, so I'm gonna address these two separately. With the fire safety requirements, are you thinking that there will not be a development in the future? Because one is an alley, and with this other empty lot, do you still feel that we will still be okay with that? That's for that, and then for the parking, is there a way to work with the developer to add those missing parking, whether it is at the other end or?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Idris, I don't at this time have any concerns with the setbacks for the side yards meet the side yard setbacks. The land directly adjacent to the south is municipally owned and it backs onto the railroad tracks. It will highly likely never be developed because it would be right on the train tracks, and to the north is the street. So I don't have any concerns with the setbacks. The parking, we could always go back to the developer and ask them to increase the on-site parking. In doing so, what they'll do is eliminate green space on the site. So it would depend on council's tolerance for less green space on a housing development, knowing that there is a lot of green space around, or if they would like to see further parking installed on the development, then that's certainly within council's right to ask.
Councillor Goodenough.
I think one of the ways that we could look at more parking would be their property line to the south, the walking path area. It is a gravel parking or walking path now, isn't it? No?
You know, through the chair to Councillor Goodenough, that was recently paved by the City of Brooks a couple years ago.
We
And
got to get Google Maps updated. Okay. So I see here that we have Pleasant Park Close Way. So there's a back alley there. Is there not a possibility to have a back alley there, or a road put in that area, I guess? Where I'm thinking, does that make sense?
Where the existing back alley is?
So there isn't on the property, the future development, there isn't plans to have a back alley, I don't see, right? They're gonna have the walking path, they'll have the property line, then there's the walking path. You got the units, that I'm assuming that'll be the backyards. But there is no provisions for a back alley. And so I'm just curious why we wouldn't be putting a back alley in this area. That could alleviate some parking issues if there was even a roadway there for parking for units 26 to 36.
Through the chair to Councillor Goodenough, I think that if they did install a back alley there, they would have to move the units that much further north, and they would, at that point, then be in the parking lot.
Okay.
If they put a back alley
Just
on the
because they
south
are
end
going to
of
use
the
parking
property.
along the alleyway on
To
the
the
one street
east,
to the
yeah.
east, yeah. So it'd be interesting for consideration. I'm sure they've looked at that, but okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Wardrobe?
Yeah, my my question's also about the parking. First of all, this is a really exciting proposal to get. Like, this would be a wonderful addition to our very much dwindling housing supply. But, you know, knowing that we'd want it to be set for many, many years to come, I would also suggest some extension to the south there. So you said that the parcel right behind, like that piece in between, is municipally owned, right?
To the south.
Yeah. And, sorry, where exactly is the new trail? Is it past the dotted red line, or is it?
This is the berm, so it's right in here, so it's not any space.
So it's already paved there, so we would have to move, so that nice new paved path that we put in, oh yeah, oh no.
It's
Oh, no,
not
it's
on
down
that
there.
map either.
Oh, it's not up there.
Do you have the new area?
So what
So
issue?
exactly where is the, I'm just wondering about kind of what the other councillors had said, like, what's the potential to extend to the south? I'm not sure where exactly that new paved path is.
I'll let her answer then.
Is it? Okay. So yeah, because if we're gonna have 60 housing units and about 2 stalls per unit, you said, was it 23% variance? Do you mean like, so is that a shortfall of how many parking stalls we would have in another development of that size?
Yeah, it would be a shortfall of 28 parking stalls if we followed the RHD requirements. The direct control doesn't have any specific requirements.
Okay, Councillor Jessica.
No, I was just going to comment. I've been down that path a few times, the new path, and there's not that much space. But if you look at the way they've planned it here, at the east side where they're using the alley, they're not parking in the alley. What they've done is put parking stalls off the alley onto the property. So to do the same thing here, you could maybe put a lane in there, but you still have to put stalls onto their property, which would have a pretty major impact.
Councillor Goodenough?
Here's part of my concern, and I'm absolutely pro this, of course. One of the concerns I'm wondering is we understand in high-density places like this the need for fire vehicles, vehicles to get in. My concern is, and maybe someone can speak to this, is that if they don't have access to those units of 23 to 26, I'm concerned that there's too great of a difference. If there's vehicles parked, which there's good possibility, from 14 to 30, how does the fire department plan to get into unit 30? And if all of 21 to 40 is filled, how do they make a plan to get in? And then the reason I'm not saying they couldn't, or maybe push some vehicles out of the way, but having a back alley access will guarantee adequate fire service.
Yeah, Kevin, are you able to answer that for us?
Yeah, I'd have to see the plan once it's been drawn up.
Okay.
You're absolutely right. If there's a back alley or laneway to get in there, it just makes sense.
There's a requirement of the development permit
Yeah.
that a fire safety plan be submitted to the city of Brooks prior to the issuance of a building permit. So items like that would be considered within the fire safety plan and the Alberta Fire Code.
Okay,
Okay,
Councillor
thank you.
Wardrobe?
Yeah, I think, just going even back to our previous read-through of our new proposed bylaw, Brooks, like, we still are a very vehicle-centered municipality here. Like, we still, most people have a vehicle, even in a higher density residential area. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to start with a almost 30% deficit in parking just to start with. Like, I think that only will invite problems. And I would love to see something this large and this significant be built with lots of parking, so that it works as a functional space instead of trying to patchwork and Band-Aid the problems over the years or whatever it becomes. So, like, I love the plan, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to start at 30% almost a parking deficit.
The other solution to that, Lisa, would be that, and you talked about that in your report, that if they are adding extra parking, they could reduce the amount of green space.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to factor in is their cost too. We have to sort of make this economical for them too, because if we start to challenge them a little bit too much, and then it's not economical. And I think both you guys said we need the housing here. It's very important. So maybe as they get a little bit further into that, maybe it's the green space that they can eliminate then, or reduce, not eliminate but reduce. Go ahead, Councillor Wardrobe.
Yeah, I absolutely take your point too. Like, I don't want to discourage this development at all. I think something that Lisa mentioned was something about there's a spot for street parking, right? So as the proposal is right now, would that be public parking, or could we assign those places on the street for the units there?
Just, and you can answer
I'm
that,
just
but,
sorry- I'm
but,
sorry, I
but
know.
go ahead. Any street parking in the community is public parking. Like in front of my place, it's public parking. In front of your place, it's public parking on that, as long as they're not hindering your driveway.
So so that would not be under direct control then? That the parking there?
Through the chair to Councillor Wardrobe. A couple of things that I'll address is that we do have some neighborhoods in the community where there is permitted parking
in front of the property, and that it's not open to anybody, anytime. The reason that we have them is because they're extremely busy areas, and we've reserved those parking stalls in front of, on the street for the houses within that street. So we could do something like that here. I believe that's what was approved with a different multi-unit residential development where they utilized on-street parking, numbered the stalls, and it would be permitted only for the residents of that multi-family unit. So that is an option within that we could do. Something that I just noticed, so I made a mistake when I did the parking calculation, is that 36 of these units each require 2 stalls, so that's 72 stalls, but the 24 basement units are only 1 bedroom, and therefore only require 1 stall. So 72 and 24 is actually only 96 parking stalls required under the residential high-density district. So we would not be short 28 stalls. I did bad math. We would only be short 4.
Okay. And then a little follow-up to that. Are those potential street parking stalls included in that calculation?
They're not. So they have 92. Let me just check to be sure before I say it, because I already made one mistake. 92 on-site stalls and 20 on-street stalls that they've indicated on this.
Okay, well, I
So
like that
they've hit
idea.
92 out of the required 96, and then there's an additional 20 on the street.
All right, I'd like to see the street parking then allocated to the units in the property.
You mean the permit?
The residents of the properties here, they would have the assigned street parking, like Lisa
Well,
had.
we would have to permit that, and there's a few areas there, and I think Councillor Jessica, in your area there, because they're close to the Catholic school, and I think on Garrow Avenue, I think there's the other one in the
Yeah.
community there where there are permit, but are we getting ahead of the horse here? We don't really know if there's gonna be a parking issue, and I know we wanna try to solve the problem before we get a problem
Yeah.
on that, but it sounds from what Lisa said, we do have enough parking if we include the street parking and the parking inside there too. Because if you look at the other example around town, which would be similar, would be Willowbrook Estates there, eh?
Yeah.
You know, where they can park on the street, they can park inside there too, so.
And I'll just say, and I appreciate that, like, yes, okay, we've met the requirement. However, in practice, you're still always short those spaces. Like Garrow Crescent is a great example of that. Like, sure, it might fit 2, but we know that, and this came up a lot in discussion when we talked about, parking requirements. We're talking about our new land use bylaw. Sometimes, 2 is the minimum requirement. Lots of residents have more than two places. I think if we set aside that extra street parking, it would just be proactive in alleviating problems before they crop up. I don't see how it would hurt.
Councillor Goodenough.
Not to add fuel to her fire, but it's actually, like, I appreciate the size of the parking lot in a sense, but it doesn't allow for visitor parking at all.
Yeah.
So, and that's always a concern, unless we're telling the residents here you can't have company. So that's just, I think, but just to ask Lisa one question. With these recommendations, do they come back to MPC?
No, it would be approved. Council's the
This is
authority
direct
on it.
control.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So it doesn't go to MPC.
Councillor Woodruff.
So with this, would any permitting about parking on the street be a separate thing then? Or would that be a decision that we would make now?
Go ahead, Amanda, yeah.
That would be a decision that would be held later.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Idris?
With the numbers that you just now not corrected but adjusted, the 96 without the street parking, how will be 4 short with the 96? Okay. The other question I had actually was thinking about when the discussion was going earlier, and I don't know if you will have the answer right here, but what was the situation with the Brooks Housing Society? Did we do 2 per unit? Because I know that it's 1 per unit there. Each unit only has 1, and then the rest are just visitors parking.
Through the chair to Councillor Idris, I don't know off the top of my head what was approved for them, or even what's on site there.
On site, I think it's 1 per unit.
Amanda?
Because I sit on that board, I'll check into that and then I'll email you what it is currently. I believe it depends on if it's a 3-bedroom or a 2-bedroom, it's probably 2 parking stalls, or if it's a 1-bedroom, it's 1, but I'll double check that and I'll get back with you.
In my thinking is that if we can learn from there, and maybe an average, because I do believe that there will be units that will be 1-car units, and there will be so. And the idea of visitors is very, very important to consider also, because I know how difficult it is, for example, to go and find when you are like many of these in not to profile. Like, for example, when I visited some units at the Brooks Housing Society because there was a death in a family or something, and then you have like 50, 60 people coming to, it's visitor parking is something very important for these units.
Councillor Nesbitt?
I just wanted to mention that at Brooks Housing, a lot of those residents don't have vehicles at all. Many of them don't have vehicles, so it's never been overcrowded with vehicles, ever.
Councillor Prentice, did you have, yeah, Councillor Prentice?
Yeah, the only thing I can see wrong with this, nothing wrong with the plan, I like it all. I think the fire department is the one that's gonna make the decision on, there's nothing here showing how to get at them buildings or anything, so that's gonna be the key to this whole thing. They don't show, until you see your fire hydrants, how they're gonna access and that. I think that's the thing that will change this plan, if anything.
And that plan has to come forward.
Yeah, it has to come,
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that's really missing.
Yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Prentice, the way that we've laid this out, because I thought that there was going to be a parking conversation, and I was right, was that I asked the developer to do the preliminary site plans now to get the number of parking stalls required approved, and then to come back prior to starting construction to provide this stormwater management plan, the site grading plan, the fire plan, and if any of those are like site servicing plan as well. So if any of those plans, once they're developed and approved by our Public Works Department, change this site plan, then they can change this site plan a lot easier once they know how many parking stalls are required.
Okay. Councillor Wardrop?
So I guess then I would like to see at minimum some kind of plan for visitor parking, and then if and how much any kind of space to the south of the property line could be used to accommodate that, instead of, like, because I appreciate the public parking, we want to keep as much public parking as possible, but yeah, what's the potential for using any kind of land to the south? And I think at the very least it should have some visitor parking spaces.
Through the chair to Councillor Wardrop, the land to the south is a city park, so it would mean like installing an alley or a paving part of our city parks to utilize for parking. Visitor parking space, like it's possible that the 20 stalls that are indicated on the street could be used as visitor stalls. There's also where Pleasant Park Road West merges into 12th Street West. Just adjacent to this property, there's no development on either side. So in the very short term, at least, there would be on-street parking on both sides of that street.
Councillor Jessica?
So with a correction to the math, for all intents and purposes, it meets our bylaws.
Yeah, it does.
So
Yeah.
unless we want to change our bylaws to
Yeah.
require additional parking stalls, then I think there have been some measures here that suggest that it will help deal with the problem if it arises.
Yeah.
But from what the experience is at affordable housing, there may not even be an issue.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? No, sorry, you can't talk there. Sorry, no, you can't talk. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to call the question here. Okay, to the motion, all those in favor? Carried. It is, to reiterate, and I think a few of the councilors pointed out, you know, when we strive for housing in the area here, I think this is a nice project there. And I know there's the little details, you know, that we got to work out here. But, you know, to get, 60 units, to be built in Brooks is big news for us. And I look back in the last 20, 25 years, we haven't had a lot of development in this community here. So this is really, really good. And I look at the Willings of Brooks. So between the two of them, it's a good project. And thank you, Lisa and Gavin, who had worked on this one here too, so. Okay, moved by Councillor Wardrop that council formally approve the proposed amended Grasslands Regional FCSS agreement. Amanda.
Through the chair to Mayor Council and to Mayor Petrie and Council. During the June 11th, 2024 Joint Shared Services Committee meeting, the attached draft proposed amended Grasslands Regional FCSS agreement was presented to the committee. Changes to the agreement include revising term limits of members at large, updating the financial contribution clause, and refraining from adding to the agreement a definition of member at large. Therefore, upon the recommendation of the Joint Shared Services Committee, the proposed amended Grasslands Regional FCSS agreement is to be taken to respective councils for formal approval. Therefore, the recommendation is that council formally approve the proposed amended Grasslands Regional FCSS agreement at this time.
I'll open it up for questions here, but I'll just give some background for people that don't understand the background on this one here, because all the municipalities involved in FCSS appoint an elected official, and there's also a member at large. Brooks has a member at large, Dutchess has a member at large, Rosemary has a member at large. What happened here is in the county, they had their elected official, and then they also appointed an elected official as their member at large. And I think the agreement, and I think we were all in agreement of this wasn't the spirit of what the member at large should be. It should be a non-elected official on that. But we did, through joint services, we did talk to the county on that. But at this point, it didn't seem like they were going to change their position on that one there. So I'll open it up to the floor here now. Councillor Wardrop.
Yeah, I unfortunately I do take issue with the member at large definition, or the lack thereof. I just want to first of all clarify for maybe I'll ask one of the councillors or Mayor Petrie, since you sit on joint services, were any other municipalities there in favor of the I guess the proposal of not having a definition of the elected, or sorry, a member at large, or was it just the county?
I'll ask the chairperson there if he remembers that, Councillor Idris there. I know the other municipalities were in agreement in the spirit, like speaking as we were. The spirit of it is a member elected at large should be a non-elected official. But okay, Councillor Idris, if you want to add to that.
I think you were right, Mayor Petrie. All of the municipalities were in support of the definition being an elected official, with the difference that one municipality actually wanted to leave it to the board of the FCSS. They wanted the board of FCSS to decide what's a member at large.
And the FCSS board, though, did recommend these changes, that the definition of member at large be an unelected official. Yeah, so like Mayor Petrie said, the spirit of the agreement is that a member at large is an unelected official, and there's a number of different reasons for that. The unelected members on our boards are a purposeful part of the way that our boards and committees function and work, and it's always been the understanding that members of large mean unelected. So I'm really wondering why the county feels that this is an issue, that they feel so strongly that they would not want to include in this current agreement, particularly because You know, I believe we don't take issue with the current elected members, both serving until the next organizational meeting. And then I think it's more than reasonable at the next organizational meeting that an elected member and a member at large who is not an elected official then serve on behalf of the board.
Good, go ahead, finish, Marissa.
Yeah, I feel fairly strongly that if we open this definition up to interpretation, that this could potentially be, you know, changing the composition of our other boards and therefore limiting really, again, like I said, purposeful reasons that unelected members serve on our boards. It affects our diversity of our boards. We need a diversity of voices and experiences on our boards. It takes away levels of community representation. There's also you know, we need people on there that have a voice that they're removed from any kind of political sway or you know, they get to voice their opinion and vote completely without any consequence of jobs or voting or anything like that. It increases accountability at the board, around the board table too, that it's not just elected officials going back and forth and negotiating, but you just have that level of civic engagement that I think is really important. And I'm not implying that in every situation that would be lacking. However, if this has always been the agreement and the understanding and the spirit behind our agreement, I really feel like it is a very, very small ask that all members of the FCSS agreement, all the municipalities agree that a member at large means an unelected official. And I feel like we're willing to accommodate anything that would keep the current situation in place so that we can continue our work. I sit on the FCS board as an elected official. It's a fantastic board, and we get lots of great work done. So I don't think that this would be, you know, we can accommodate this and this would be great. Next organizational meeting, we'll go back to the spirit of and the intent of our agreement, and I feel strongly that the county could come to the table with us on this.
Councillor Jessica.
Excuse me. No, thanks, Marissa. So we've had some discussion about this, and you just said that it has been working. It's been working very well. And I do remember a time when the county and the city did not get along very well. And I understand what you're talking about, the spirit, but unfortunately the definition does not specify what you're looking for. But do we want to, it's a one-year contract, there is an escape clause. Do we want to foster ill will between ourselves and the county over something that is working at all at this time and that could be worked through in the coming year as part of the process?
Councillor Woodruff.
Yeah, Councillor Jessica, I take your point, and I think it has a lot of validity to it. I realize that, yeah, if we were to say, put our foot down on this definition, that could potentially ruffle some feathers. However, and maybe if I understood the rationale behind the counties really just not wanting to get behind us with this on this definition, and maybe someone else could speak to that. Maybe I could come to an understanding there. But as it is right now, it seems like such a small ask to just agree that, like it's always been, a member at large is an unelected member. Just come to the table with us on this. It's not a big ask, and it does just because it's working now, and it's fantastic that it's working now. We could be setting a precedent, and in the future, it's not working so well, and that would be a situation that'd be much more difficult to kind of claw back from and then just having the policy in place the way it's supposed to be.
Any other, Councillor Idris?
In the beginning, I want to say that I think again, we use the word, the spirit of the agreement, and also the spirit of the whole FCSS's foundation from the province and how it's set, is to bring in community engagement and community input. So 100% agree that the member at large should be a public member that's not elected. Unfortunately, we see ourselves in this place now where the agreement, how it was written in the past, did not provide for a clear definition for the member at large. And we find ourselves here trying to bring in this definition in the county is saying no. Marissa, Councillor Wardrop asked why the county is saying this, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the county, but we understand there was some sort of a difficulty with some appointments in the last term, and the only way they could work around it is by the appointment that they did in terms of the two councillors. When I think about this, I was very close to where Councillor Wardrop was in the past, saying that, you know, this is the spirit of the agreement, and this is what it should be, and we should not accept anything less than that. I want to mention here that it's actually our departing Chief Administrative Officer, in his wisdom, to try to keep this working organization, as Marissa said, going, that suggested maybe we drop that now and we keep the agreement as it is, and in discussion with everyone else at the Joint Services group, we agreed or we voted to do that. I want to say that the agreement actually provides for an annual review every November. So we could actually bring this back to Joint Services every November till we get this changed. And that means talking to county. We have our meetings when we try to, you know, have debates and have influence through different means. Maybe we try that and we bring back this back in November, and we see where things are in November. And if it didn't work this November, we bring it back next November and we go from there. At this time, I think to work with that recommendation from our departing CEO to keep this board working and to keep this agreement going, I will support this motion.
Okay. And you bring up a good point, because it is reviewed every November. And secondly, with the organizational meeting, it might solve itself too, the appointment of the member at large. Councillor Goodenough there.
I appreciate Councillor Idris's comments and Councillor Wardrop's and Councillor Juska's comments too. I'm going to vote against this motion, and the reason being is they're changing the rules in the middle of the game. And we could have had an organization meeting, just like you said, in November, previous November, where they felt that they wanted to have it changed. They changed it unknowing and very deceptively, let's be honest, and caught us all off guard on this, because they couldn't find a member at large. And so I find that very disrespectful to all the municipalities that participate in this. And I'm not trying to start a turf war by any means, but what I'm saying is we need to follow the rules, the spirit of the law and the spirit of cooperation and partnership. And I think that was just very uncalled for, that they could have waited, they could have followed the rules and requested at the time then to do that. And they can say, well, we interpret it different. Well, come to the table and talk about it before appointing a counselor. And so that's kind of where I'm going to go on that, and that's my 2 cents.
I think Council Jessica, then Wardrop there, yeah.
I'm looking for the rule that they're breaking. I can't find it anywhere. There's no definition. You know, this may be the assumption, but we even discussed, when we were discussing it, was looked up online, the definition, and the definition was not clearly what you're arguing for. So there's nothing here that says they can't do this. But again, there's many options short of pulling out to deal with this in the fairly short term.
Councilor Good, oh, okay, no, okay, yeah, no, okay. I'm gonna ask Amanda here something, and I don't know how the vote, I'm gonna call the question here in a second here. If we're voted down, what happens with this? Do we go back to the board on that then? Okay, just so everybody's clear on that, so, okay. I'll give you one, yeah, Councilor Wardrop, yeah, go ahead, one last, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of adding on to Councillor Goodno's last point there. I can appreciate that sometimes we have difficulty finding board members, and appointing board members is an important responsibility of a municipality. However, there's some flexibility in the agreement that for a number of months at a time that you have to appoint a member. Like there's areas of flexibility where you don't need to have an elected official serve as a member at large, and that's why we have not seen it. And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. We have not seen it to this point. And again, I ask, why? Why would they not just say, yes, a member at large is an unelected official? I don't see the issue.
And unfortunately, we can't talk for the county.
Yep, and that's fine. I guess that was more of a hypothetical question. I was just putting it out into here. But yeah, when there's enough flexibility, you know, municipalities have figured out a way around it. You know, we try our best to find people who want to engage on these boards, but there's just no logical reason why.
Okay. Councillor Idris, yeah.
I know you started the question, which is, you don't know what's going to happen, and ask Amanda about what will happen. I wanted this to be very clear. What would be the consequences of a defeated motion, and how long are we taking this? If there is, yes, if this motion is defeated and we go back, what does that mean? I want that to be clear.
Through the chair to Councillor Idris, should you not pass this motion and not approve the proposed amendment to the Grasslands Regional FCSS agreement, it will go back to Joint Shared Services for more discussion, and to find out ways to pass the agreement, whether it's adding back in a definition or maybe adding a definition with more clarification, but this will definitely go back to Joint Shared Services for more discussion.
If it's defeated.
If it's defeated.
Okay, are we good? Okay, Councillor Wardrop?
Well, then, if that is the case, then maybe this message would be a good one to send to the county then at the next joint shared services meeting. That, and I hope that my council colleagues feel strongly about it too. That, you know, actually we feel quite strongly that for the reasons of, you know, if the ones that Councillor just strongly agreed with, and I really hope that everyone does, that it is a matter of diversity and community engagement and accountability and all of those things. And so maybe we just need to communicate a little bit more clearly that we feel strongly about this, and we ask them in good faith to take another look at the agreement and to please allow the definition of member at large to stand as an unelected official. So, yes, that's all.
Okay, I'm going to call the question here. Okay, so the motion of the council formally approved the proposed amended Grasslands Regional FCSS agreement. All those in favor? Those against? Okay, it's carried. Okay, moved by Councillor Prentice that policy E002007A entitled Water and Sewer Service Connection Policy be adopted. Amanda.
Through the chair to Mayor Petrie and council, administration has recently updated the city's water and sewer connection permit and the City of Brooks Water and Sewer Service Connections Policy E002007A, which has been attached for your perusal. The policy was last updated in 1998 with both the policy and the water and sewer connection permit having been updated to reflect current practices and to include an acknowledgement form, RR installation form, as well as a water meter installation form to the document. Adding an acknowledgement form to the document will ensure that the inspection process of the policy has been reviewed and explained thoroughly, and that the procedures and inspection of the policy are adhered to. Therefore, the recommendation is that policy E002007A be formally adopted.
Okay, any questions? Okay, to the motion, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Jessica that bylaw 2416 be read a second time. And this is our land use bylaw, right? Okay. Any questions on what was discussed earlier? Councillor Jessica.
So this is the one that,
Yeah.
for Ash Street, would be.
No, this is the one that Gavin, for the public hearing we had at 5 there, yeah. Yeah. Okay, no questions? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Nesbitt that bylaw 2416 being a bylaw of the City of Brooks in the province of Alberta to amend bylaw 1412 being the land use bylaw be read a third time and adopted. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, I don't know if Sandra's on there. Bruce, she's not on there. Okay, moved by Councillor that the meeting adjourn at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone.